Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Spirit Matters, your daily Bhakti Center podcast, where we talk about spiritual subject matters and learn how to bring them into our everyday lived realities and learn how to apply these spiritual truths in a practical, simple way. We are talking about the Bhagavad Gita. This week, we're kind of preparing because next week we're going to start reading the Bhagavad Gita together. So we've been talking about how it's influenced our lives, how it came into our lives, and our personal journeys through that. But before we get more into that, how are you doing this morning, Achita Gopi? We can't hear you, Achita.
Muted.
Oh, there we go. I'm mostly
Still
okay.
still working that out.
Maybe, if that's an indication of this day.
How about you, Doyal?
We didn't hear from Achuta.
I thought she was done.
Yeah, mostly okay.
Mostly.
Mostly okay. Okay, mostly okay. All right. Um I'm mostly okay. I'm doing good. Doing great. Fantastic. Beautiful. Love it. There was something today I shared. Somebody asked a question, "Are you okay?" And the response was, "Oh my god, no. But for the purpose of this conversation, yes, I'm fine."
Well, um, I we were talking about the Enneagram yesterday. So I had
All
like a
right.
very type 7 morning, where I just like woke up and went for a long walk in the park and I turned corners that I didn't know where they would lead me to. And I ended up at a vegan bakery that I didn't even know existed in my neighborhood. And I got a vegan cinnamon bun and my morning is great.
Was it good?
It was amazing. It was amazing. So I had a very kind of whimsical, spontaneous morning. So I'm very happy about
I don't know how I feel about that. That doesn't happen. I don't discover
that.
vegan bakeries early in the morning with delicious, fresh cinnamon buns.
It was great. It was great. So we're talking about Bhagavad Gita. We're talking about its influence in our lives. I think it came into all of our lives in very different ways. It seemed, Machuta, it's been part of your life forever. Rayal, you moved into the ashram quite young and had like a very just like direct experience with the Gita. And I read the Gita when I was 21, and it just like completely went over my head. And so it's really interesting that we have this variety of experiences. And I guess maybe I'll start us off with saying, like, I guess what's coming to me is that, like, the Gita has been such a source of solace for me because it's what's inside of the Gita is really practical. It's really like, even though this is a text that's like thousands and thousands and thousands of years old, it is very practical and there's a lot of like messages that really apply to our everyday life. And I remember we brought up this word, maybe it was yesterday or maybe it was 2 days ago, but the idea of surrender has really been on my mind lately, and how the
Mm.
Gita really starts from this place of surrender. You were talking about this a little bit yesterday, Achyuta, where Arjuna, Krishna's very dear friend and cousin, he had a relationship with Krishna that was very like close and friendly and intimate, and he didn't necessarily realize that like he was like capital God, like he kind of, there was like a little like something like maybe okay, you have some godly powers and this and like okay, cool, but like he didn't really understand this. And so at the beginning of the Gita, one of the most, and we'll get into this more when we read the Gita, one of the most powerful moments is when Arjuna has that like shift in consciousness where he's like, I don't know what to do anymore. Like, I don't know what is good for me anymore. I don't know whether to turn left or right. Like, I just need your guidance. And I think so many of us come to spiritual life in that mood, actually, of just like, I don't know what to do anymore. Like I've tried all the things, I've tried to figure out all the problems in my life with, I remember like a podcast a long time ago, we said this, of like, the more that we try to figure out spiritual issues or spiritual problems via material ways, we're just going to get frustrated because it doesn't work. And so Arjuna is kind of having this moment of just like, yeah, I don't know what to do anymore, And so that was always a really important part for me, because I remember when I came into bhakti again, and I started taking the Gita more seriously, and I started taking bhakti more seriously, it was because I was, well, not because, but it was like, it was a moment in my life where I was just like, I don't know what to do anymore. Like, I feel like I've tried everything. I feel like I've gone to all the places. I've seen all the things. I've done what I'm supposed to do. And it's just not working, like there's still something missing. And in that mood, I was able to really like approach it in a more honest and sincere way. So yeah, maybe we could start off from there today. I don't know your thoughts on this, Achyuta or Doyao.
I was just talking about this yesterday, that there is this very important idea that in order to really come to the point of surrender, usually we have to become, well, spiritual surrender, we usually have to be completely materially frustrated. And Srila Prabhupada makes that point often, that Arjuna was completely materially frustrated, which put him in the perfect position to make this ultimate surrender and say, like you said, that's it. I don't know what's good for me. This is bigger than me. This is stronger than me, and I can't handle this. And whenever we hear that, it can sound off-putting because nobody wants to be materially frustrated. Nobody really wants to be frustrated in any way. But the point is that it's going to happen. We all have a little bit of our intellectual rock bottom, or our emotional rock bottom, or our spiritual rock bottom, and whatever that is going to be different for everyone. But once we hit that rock bottom, I always feel like it's important for us to look at what happens after that, because the moment of falling to rock bottom is very scary. And we can tend to put up so much resistance against it. And it's like, even when we have hard emotions, when we have hard things that happen, for us, like, avoidance is much easier. I'll do whatever I can to avoid that seemingly painful situation. But really, that just puts us into a more painful situation, because we've been avoiding the thing that we have to look at. We'll always be afraid of a dark room and the shadows within it unless we just walk in and turn on the light. So once we do that, and Srila Prabhupada even uses that analogy, then you'll understand that what is within that room might not really be a snake. What you thought was a snake was just a rope. What you thought was the big bad boogeyman was just a shadow or a tree. But unless and until we actually turn on the light, look at the room, and say, okay, this is what I'm dealing with, honestly, we can't get to that point of surrender. And after that point of surrender, Krishna is always there. We are not actually alone. Not only are we not alone, but God is not condemning us for reaching rock bottom. He's right there saying, oh, don't worry. I got it. Already knew. Had the memo. I've been waiting. Now we build up from here.
Build up from here. I like that idea. And the idea that I think were we talking about hope yesterday? Everyone's like, doesn't ring a bell. Hope.
I mean, we have been talking about,
Trust. We're talking about trust. I know we're talking about. Anyways, I bring that up because I think that I was discussing this. I was reading this. I'm gonna read something. I was talking about this word hope yesterday with somebody in one of our ashram sanghas, and where it's mentioned in Rupa Goswami's Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu that Srila Prabhupada translated and summarized in the Nectar of Devotion. in this word hope is used, and specifically in this idea of hope, not because hope in Krishna's love, hope in the idea that we are never unredeemable, hope in the idea that as bad as things get materially, there is always tremendous hope spiritually. And I think, as you mentioned, Achyuta, the idea of always being able to build up from there, there's like this constant ability, there's like a constant reconnect button that we can hit at any moment. No matter how disconnected we get, no matter how it's kind of like I'm 37 years old. I used to play a lot of music when I was younger, before I became a monk. I moved to an ashram. And I play a little bit of music now, but it's like I've lost so much of what I used to play so often when I was a teenager. And it's like, the idea of wanting to go back into music and play music, it's almost like I'm starting from so far, like I've lost so much of what I already gained. But in spiritual life, it's like at any moment we can pick up right where we left off. At any moment, there's this sense of like, you can jump right back in the pool anytime. You can get right back on the highway anytime. You can actually reconnect at any moment. It just, you might have to the entry price might be a little bit more humility, because you're no longer resting on your laurels the way that you did previously. But now that you're actually recognizing that you're a product of grace, a product of undying acceptance that has nothing to do with your performance, because the performance itself was so bad. Like, it was so messy, it was so stumbly, it was so um so many faults, you know but yet then we realize that actually, like, no matter how far that bottom gets, we can build from there. We can start from there. And so I was just thinking of this. I'm not gonna read this here. I was just referencing it. But I was thinking of this word hope in Sanskrit, this ashabandha, which is referred to in the Nectar Devotion. This idea of great hope. And I think it's referenced as a hallmark of a sincere devotee, of an advanced spiritualist, is that we always keep that hope. And I find that that when I see people who have been practicing spiritual life for an extended period of time, and who are kind of like, quote unquote, making it, so to speak, I find that it's not necessarily the people who get everything right, who are like disciplined beyond measure, and like never have their doubts or their sorrows or their setbacks or their fall downs or their fallbacks. It's people that just refuse to go away and give up, and who are willing to mess and all, show up every day. This is me in my good days. This is me in my bad days. This is me with all kinds of makeups and party gowns and filters, looking great. This is me, a complete mess, straight out of bed. I mean, I have the longest hair in this group, so nobody here is going to have a bad hair day any day soon. But like, just a complete mess. And this is me. And it's just like an unwillingness, almost like this, like spiritual stubbornness to like, not a spiritual stubbornness, like I'm right and everyone else is wrong, but like, no matter how much I bump or fail, I'm going to keep throwing myself at the process and keep throwing myself at Krishna's grace.
I like that idea. I was I had written something a while ago, thinking and speaking about the idea that I want to be more spiritually stubborn, and
Mm.
spiritually stubborn, believing in Krishna, believing that his mercy is going to help me, his mercy is coming, and that no matter how long it takes, that Krishna is reciprocating. And sometimes that can be the roughest part, is when we feel like, well, why isn't anything happening? You see all these stories and all these people, and they're doing all this, austerity, but something's happening with them. There's some changes happening with them. Why isn't anything happening with me? But it is. Sometimes those changes are so subtle that we can underestimate them or downplay them. And
Mm.
consequently, then I wind up underestimating and downplaying Krishna's mercy. And I start to feel like, unless it is some big revelation at a burning bush and all these things, then it doesn't exist. It's not there. And I want to start recognizing Krishna's mercy in all the small ways that it enters my life.
And I think sometimes to recognize that mercy, or to just like even start to like see with more of a spiritual vision and spiritual mindset, it's really important to like be around other people who are honestly endeavoring and honestly, sincerely not giving up and being spiritually stubborn. Um, and The reason I say that is just because when I started getting into the Gita again, it was like in community. You know, it was reading it with other people, reading it with other people who have been on this path, who have gone through the ups and downs and the upsets and the mess and the chaos. And, you know, I remember one of my very dear friends, we would have conversations and he was just like, yeah, he's so funny when he talks. He's like, yeah, bro, like, you know, sometimes it's just so intense that I'm just like asking Krishna, like, are you there? Are you there? And I just want to like throw my japa and like get rid of all of this. And I just can't do it anymore. And he's like, but that's, and he would just be so emphatic when he talked. He's like, that's when you have to stay. Like, that's when you have to stay. And I was like, yes, you know, and it was just hearing his story and what he's been through made me feel like, wow, this is something real and this is something special, you know, because I think a lot of what spiritual life at the nascent stage is that we see other people who are living this spiritual life and we're like, you know, they've they have something, like something's there, like I'm not sure what it is, but they're operating on a different frequency, and I'm over here, my life is falling apart, and I want to know like what that frequency is, you know, what is it that they've got that I might not have. And so reading the Gita together with devotees, with people who have been on, who are just on this path, no matter what, spiritually stubborn, was super, super important. So I was just really appreciating that we're going to embark on this journey together of Bhagavad Gita, because it's something really important to be together, to be held in a group, to be able to talk about things together, as opposed to just like reading it alone in the corner. And you know, you might read something, and this happened to me the first time I read it. You might read something that either will go over your head, you might read something that triggers something in you, that might make you close it and just be like, I don't, nope, I don't understand it. You know, you might read something that makes you confused, or there's so many different things and possibilities. So I think it's so powerful. Yeah. Yeah, Doyal, that was who it is. and and so I'm just so happy that we're doing it together.
I think those are really important emotions and situations to bring up. And I feel like we don't talk about them enough. There are times when you really feel like, I just want to throw all of this away. I've been trying and trying and trying. Now I am tired. I don't want to do this. And on the days where I feel most like that, I'll wind up, calling my sister or calling a family member, and by hook or by crook, what happens is somebody will bring in Krishna. And on those days, I'm such a person that I'm really not afraid to say, like, we are not on speaking terms this day. Maybe tomorrow it'll be better, but like today I'm not talking to him. Like, that's not how this works. I'm angry. And I think it's okay to have those days where we feel angry and frustrated about this entire process. Arjuna's not going to be happy about it either. We're going to go through those moments where he's like, but this doesn't make any sense, Krishna. I was already frustrated, and what you're telling me now is frustrating me further because none of this makes sense. I'm about to throw all of your philosophy out the window. And rightly so. You know, you all are saying that that's the moment where when you stay. It's like any other relationship. When you get to those argument points, when you get to those places where, okay, now you have a choice, things are getting real. You can close up into a shell, or you can stay and get the fruit of all the work you've been putting in. This is where we find out what we're like. Getting down to like brass tacks, this is where we find out what we're made of, what this relationship is made of, and how we react based on all the love that we have for this other person. And it should be thought of that way with Krishna. Here's the point: when I'm not getting what I want, when the road seems really long and dark and I can't see 2 feet in front of me, and it feels like that's been going on for like 3 years, here's the point that really shows me what this relationship was all about.
Yeah. Dana's, this word surrender is coming up a lot as you mentioned Kishore. I think that Dana made two points here. There's that overthinking, spinning out, and then surrendering more. And I think that I don't know if you mentioned that earlier this week on the podcast, Kishore. You were just mentioning on Tuesday when you led kirtan, the idea of sometimes when we're stressed and thinking about things a lot, there's the idea that I just gotta think my way through it. That if I just keep thinking, I'm just gonna get through it. Like I'm laying in bed stressed about something. It's like, okay, as soon as I just think through this, I'm gonna fall asleep and be comforted, you know. And I think that the surrender comes in that idea of like I remember the idea. This came up like as a point when someone is referencing in japa or their meditation. Sometimes in in the practice of mantra, when we're chanting japa meditation or chanting mantra as a form of meditation, the idea is to absorb our mind in the sound. But sometimes we can't absorb the mind in the sound because the mind is already absorbed in so many other things, something that we're worrying about, a conversation, etc. I mean, it's interesting that the nature of the mind is to be like absorbed. It's the nature of the mind. And the question isn't like to get rid of the mind. The question is, what do I want my mind to be absorbed in? And, our minds are always absorbed in something, and advertising companies and social media companies and streaming platforms, like they understand that, like, okay, I'm going to tell you what your mind is going to be absorbed in. It's going to be a mind absorbed in Stranger Things, or it's going to be absorbed in whatever it's supposed to be. And so I think that for us to make that decision to absorb our mind in sound and mantra, it's like a rebellion. We're really trying, but sometimes we're absorbed in things that we're stressed out about. And there was one teacher who'd been practicing for a long time. He was mentioning, who do you think is better suited to figure out whatever it is that you're stressed about? Is it you and your mind who hasn't figured it out quite yet? Or if you just give this little bit of time, give this time that you have to focus on Krishna, and then say, listen, I'm going to worry about absorbing my mind in this meditation right now, and I'm going to let you worry about whatever it is that I'm trying to figure out with my mind, and we're just going to swap places for a second. And more often than not, even if it's not like, okay, I came out of meditation, oh my God, the solution is solved. It's like we come from a better place of being able to. I think so much of the Gita is what I'm trying to say is that, shifting from autopilot to copilot, shifting that place from feeling like I'm just kind of thinking this on my own. And surrender isn't that, like, turning it, is that invitation of a co-pilot and recognizing, like, okay, I don't have to be in the driver's. I'm not getting out of the car. I'm just shifting over to the passenger seat. So I was just appreciating that overthinking in relation to surrender.
Super powerful. Thank you, Doyal. I think a lot of people resonated with that autopilot, co-pilot image. It's really nice. Martha says it could be very scary to realize the answer to some of our questions is not what we want to hear, but it is very needed asking those questions and with an honest heart accepting Krishna's answers. So nice, Martha. I think that's really important too, because we might not want to hear the answer to our questions because we are thinking that the mind, we just have to think our way out of it. Like Doya was saying, like, and so the answer that we're getting from Krishna might not be what we want to get, but it might be the most likely the right answer. And then Dana is saying that she struggles with it being surrender, or realizing after the fact, why didn't you surrender or turn to Krishna? So I'm trying to learn to catch it beforehand and lean on Krishna rather than my over-controlling mind and all the external stuff. Well, we are running fresh out of time, folks. It's been a really nice discussion today. I really appreciated this, but we will turn it away to our dear Kimberly, who is so expert at giving us some takeaways of today's session, of every session.
Thank you. Yeah, there are a lot of good takeaways today. So we're taking away to turn on the light for the dark room so we can see things honestly and truly recognize all the small ways Krishna's love is present in our lives. No matter how deep our bottom gets, we can always have hope, try to be spiritually stubborn and build from there. There's always a reconnect button. And then I love Dayal's point that surrender is an invitation to shift from autopilot to copilot.
Pretty good one.
It's a good one. It's a good one. Beautiful. Thank you so much, Kimberly. If anyone else has any takeaways, please put them in the chat. Martha says, thank you everyone for lighting up the light when it gets a little dark. Love you. Love you too, Martha. Achuta, any takeaways?
I've been kind of like looking and taking away this idea that Krishna is not out to get us. And I am repeating that to myself on a daily, hourly, moment-to-moment basis. Because there's always this idea that, you know, what I want is what I want. And whenever God comes in and tells me what is right, it will never be what I want. Like, it will always be the most bitter medicine. And I'm like, is it? Because, you know, whenever we just let God finish his statement, it turns out not to actually be as bitter as we think it is. Sometimes the bitter stuff, the medicine, that's from us. And then when Krishna finishes his statement, we're like, oh, well, that worked out better than I could have expected. He's like, yeah, it always does. Always, always. So my takeaway is that surrender or not, Krishna's not out to get me.
Ashley says her takeaway is don't quit my day job.
Don't quit your day job yet.
Just yet.
Just yet. Doyal, any takeaways?
I mean, I quit my day job a long time ago. Just shifting from autopilot to copilot. I'm holding on to that one. I'm moving over into the passenger seat.
Love it, love it, love it. I also quit my day job a while ago. My takeaway is just really believing that we're not alone in this process. That's something that I've been repeating to myself a lot. Like, we're all going through it. We're all having this spiritual experience in this material, you know, body. And sometimes, you know, because Dana was mentioning like overthinking and spinning out and just like, you know, you brought up this point, Dayal, that I was talking about on Tuesday night of just like, yeah, I think I'm going to think my way out of this problem. And it just doesn't work. And something that the takeaway for me is just community and reaching out for help and just being with each other and sharing our struggles, I think is really important.
Did anybody else sing "Don't Stop Believing" while you were speaking? Was that just me? It's just me. It's fine. It's just me. It's fine.
Don't stop your chanting.
Thank you.
Hold on to that beat back.
Oh, I love it. Everyone's saying we are all in this together. Yes, Kimberly, and you were singing it in your high school musical, Jai. Awesome. Thank you all so much for our conversation today. Thank you to our live studio audience from all over the states, all over the world. Thank you to Achyuta Gopi and Dayal Garanga. And we will be here tomorrow at 9 a.m., closing our conversation on the intro to Bhagavad Gita, and then next week starting with Bhagavad Gita. Okay, thank you all so much and have a beautiful rest of your day. Bye, folks.